What is a living dex? Well, rather than just catching and evolving to fill out our Pokédex entries, it's having a living copy of every Pokémon, hence the living dex. During X and Y's era, I started the journey of trying to complete one. However, I never got very far, but it has always been something on the back of my mind. With most Pokémon now available on the Switch games, I decided it was time to go back and complete this challenge. A few dexes have already been completed, and it's now time for the Johto dex. Compared to the last few dexes, there isn't actually a game that takes part in Johto, so we're going to have to dive into multiple different games to complete this dex. And to start off with, we are deep underground, in the Grand Underground within BDSP, more specifically Brilliant Diamond. Down here is where we're going to catch a lot of Pokemon. The first two are the starters of Chikorita and Totodile. However, before we stumble upon either of them, we find ourselves a Tyrogue, who was planning to be caught in another game, but I'll get them as I've seen them, so we might as well. So after we find Chikorita and Totodile, the plan is to level them up to their final evolutions of Meganium and Fraligator. Breed them, hatch the eggs, and then evolve the starters once more into their middle evolutions of Bayleaf and Croconaw. The Chikorita and Totodile line has been collected. Now back down in the underground we catch ourselves a Lydian, a Chinchou, Corsola, Spoochum, and a Natu. We then breed the Lydium for the pre-evolution of a Ladybug, and our second Chinchou evolves into a Lantern. This is all we have to do in BDSP for now, so let's move on to the next game of Legends Arceus. Our first order of business is to get the final starter of this generation and my all-time favourite Pokemon of Cyndaquil. Luckily for us, there is a massive mass outbreak happening in the Crimson Mirelands where we catch ourselves a Cyndaquil, along with a Kalava and a Hisuian Typhlosion, needed for the form part of the living dex. Within the Crimson Mirelands we also catch ourselves a Teddiursa, Ursaring, Yanma, Togetic, an Unknown, and all of their letters for their different forms, Sudowoodo, Heracross, and Polygon 2 within a space-time distortion. And lastly, a Murkrow. Next we make our way to the Coronet Highland for a Mischievous, a Gligar, Steelix, and a Crobat. Within the Obsidian Fieldlands we catch ourselves a Pichu, Stantler, and Blissey, although the footage got corrupted so I don't actually have that, but we caught one. The Cobalt Coastlands is our next target for Hisuian Quillfish, Togepi, Apom, Remoran, and Octillery. And our final area of the Alabaskan Icelands, we catch a Swinub, Piloswine, and a Hisuian Sneasel. Unfortunately my capture card wasn't playing nice here and decided to just record a still instead of the last two catches. It really didn't like Legends Arceus for some reason. But anyway, before making our way to the next game, we quickly return to BDSP for the evolutions of Typhlosion and to catch ourselves a Sneasel for their standard forms. Time to dive into Sword and Shield and into the wild area where most of our catches from this game will take place. First off, we start our catching session with an Exew, followed by a Wobbuffet, a Blossom, Shuckle, Mantine, Espeon, and Hitmontop. Next, on the way to the Isle of Armor, we catch ourselves a Skarmory, Scizor, Miltank, Quagsire, Wooper, Politoed, Kingdra, and for the final Pokemon from Sword we make our way to Route 9 for a Quillfish. I should also probably take note that a lot of these spawns we wanted to get them, we had to change the date so we would have guaranteed weather in either the wild areas or the Isle of Armor, making it a lot quicker than just praying that the weather is correct that day. Onwards to Scarlet and Violet. Starting off in the Till Mask DLC, we catch ourselves a Sentret and a Slugma. Since they are quick and easy and one of the few spawns I actually remember in Scarlet and Violet, but with that, let's go to the main game and get the rest. We start off by catching a Dunsparce, followed by a Skiploom, Girafarig, Fampi, Dolphin, Marill, Azumarill, Fortress, Hoppin, a Paldean Wooper, Igglybuff, Mareep, Sunturn, and down in Area 0 we get ourselves a Jumpluff. The evolution of Sentret into Ferret also comes mid-catching session. Delibird, Sunflora, and Haldor are all then added to the decks before making our way to the DLC once more. While exploring Kitakami, we stumble upon a few more additions for our living decks. The arachnic pair of Spinarak and Ariados, and hiding in a cave are a Hoothoot and a Cleffa. Slugma also takes this chance to evolve into Magcargo. A wild Terra Dark Umbreon, and a Terra Ghost Haldun are also both found lurking away in a cave. We herd up a wild Fluffy and knock a Pineco out of the tree. Onwards to the terrarium within the Indigo Disc DLC, and it's here we catch ourselves a Snubbull, a Smeagol, Granbull, Magby, and an Elekid. We also get the last couple of evolutions of Fluffy into an Ambrose and a Hoothoot into a Noctowl. Both a Slowking and their Galarian forms were also obtained, but I can't seem to find the footage of where we got them anywhere, and it's too awkward to re-record it, so you just have to take my word at it. Moving away from Violet and swapping into Scarlet lets us hunt for the version exclusive pseudo-legendaries of Larvitar, Pupitar, and Tyranitar. Back into Sword and Shield, we also get the Galarian form of Corsola, and all we have remaining left now are the two box legendaries of Ho-Ho and Lugia, the trio of legendary dogs, despite being more like cats, and the mythical Pokemon Celebi. First up is Lugia, who after spending a whole day searching for them within the Max Raid Den, we eventually meet one and end up successfully catching them. Took way longer than I would have liked, but we done it. The legendary dogs are next up and can all be found in Brilliant Diamonds of Ramius Park. Ramius Park? Look, you know I've said it wrong, so let's just ignore it. Anyway, after buying 3 Johto slates, we can insert them into the tablets inside the Johto room, spawning an encounter of one of the 3 dogs. First up we have Entei, followed by a Raikou, and finally Suicune. With all the free dogs now ours, this unlocks more of the park, and the main unlock we want is the ability to buy the Rainbow Slate. Using this slate on the tablet inside the Rainbow Room allows us to encounter the final box legendary of Ho-Ho. And after a few failed attempts and a lot more Pokeballs than I would have liked, Ho-Ho is finally captured, being the last legendary of the generation, and is now in our living decks. Celebi, our final Pokemon, and a mythical that has never actually had a legitimate way to be caught into the wild and has only ever been available through mystery gifts. At least that was the case until the 26th of January 2018, where Nintendo re-released all the Gen 1 and 2 games onto the 3DS Virtual Console. And within Crystal, after defeating the Elite Four, you are able to collect a GS ball from the Goldenrod City Pokemon Center, take it to Kerr and interact with a shine in Electro Forests, for an encounter with Celebi, the only legitimate way to catch Celebi in the wild. However, back on March the 27th, 2023, the 3DS eStore was turned off, meaning there was no way to download these games or the Pokemon back to transfer any Pokemon from previous generations up to the Switch. Celebi is once again locked. But it doesn't matter, as it turns out I have these games sitting on my old 3DS for years now. So loading it up, completing the Elite Four and completing these events lets us encounter and capture our Celebi. Transferring them up to the Switch, and our Johto Living Dex is completed. Another one down. So there we have it. Generations 2's Living Dex is completed, and we are one step closer to owning every Pokemon. If you want to watch any of the previous Living Dex videos, there'll be a link to a playlist down below. If you enjoyed watching the video, a like, comment and subscribe would be a great way to show it, and I know everyone says it, but it really does help the video out. But with that, thanks for watching, hopefully you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.